What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. It's an unexpected double upload day today. We've had the first double game week announcement of the season. There will be a double game week in 26 for two teams. And in this video, I'm going to go through my initial reaction, what's been announced, what it means for our FPL squads, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Okay, so what's been announced? Basically, there's been a provisional announcement to let us know there will be a double game week in game week 26 for two teams based on what happens in the Carabao Cup semi-final. So the simple explanation, if Arsenal beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup semi-final, Arsenal and Wolves will double in 26. So Arsenal would have Brentford away and Wolves away, and Wolves would have Forest away and Arsenal at home. If Chelsea beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup semi-final, they and Everton would double instead. Chelsea would have Leeds at home and Everton away, and Everton would have Bournemouth at home and Chelsea at home. Now, as it stands, Arsenal have got a 1-goal lead over Chelsea, and the second leg is at home for Arsenal as well. So they will be strong favourites to get through to the final. But if Chelsea could overturn that 1-goal deficit, they would double instead. Now, just to explain why it's only Arsenal or Chelsea that can double, basically, the Carabao Cup final is in game week 31. So whichever teams get to the final will blank in game week 31, and so will their opponents. So, for example, if Arsenal beat Chelsea in the semi-final, they get to the final, they blank in 31, their opponent is Wolves, so they also blank, and that fixture needs to be moved. And this provisional announcement is basically telling us that if Arsenal win, that fixture gets moved to game week 26 instead. Now, obviously, there's another semi-final as well. That's between Man City and Newcastle. Man City currently have a 2-goal lead, so will likely get to the final. The reason that Man City and Newcastle can't double in 26 is there's no room to bring that fixture forward. So if Man City get to the final, they and Crystal Palace would blank in game week 31, but because Crystal Palace didn't finish top 8 in Europe, they've got additional games to be played in game week 26 and 27. So that fixture can't be brought forward. Likewise, Newcastle are playing Sunderland in game week 31. So if Newcastle overturn that 2-goal deficit to Man City, they and Sunderland were blank in 31, but Newcastle didn't finish top 8 in the Champions League. So they've got playoff games. So essentially, Man City or Newcastle plus their opponents will blank in 31, but that fixture will have to go somewhere else, likely game week 33. So that's why there's only 2 announcements for game week 26. Hopefully that makes sense. The simple explanation is Arsenal beat Chelsea, Arsenal and Wolves double, Chelsea beat Arsenal, Chelsea and Everton double. Simple as that. When will we find out the actual confirmation of this? Between game weeks 24 and 25. So after the game week 24 deadline, but before the game week 25 one, i.e. next week, midweek, this semi-final second legs will get played. Okay, so by the game week 25 deadline, we'll know if it's Arsenal Wolves doubling in 26 or Chelsea and Everton. So what should this change right now in terms of your strategy? Probably not a lot, to be honest. Most people are already on triple Arsenal and they're the favourites to win. So you're already in a good position to have 3 players that are doubling in game week 26. Now, you might feel like you haven't got the correct ones. Like I'm on Raya, Gabriel and Saka. A lot of people think that Gabriel, Timber and Rice is the best 3. But for most people, you're probably already on 3. So there's no need to panic. Now, obviously, those players were blank in 31. But you can worry about that later on. I guess if it is Arsenal that win, you could look at bringing in some Wolves players, for example. So if you're looking to go for a cheap forward, rather than go for Krupi Jr., you could potentially go for Mane. Maybe. You've also got the likes of Tolu as well. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. I apologise. 5.4 million. His minutes are not fully secure, but potentially if Strand Larsen gets sold in the January transfer window, maybe his minutes get better. Tolu's potentially. I personally, and I might change my mind on this, I don't think Wolves players are going to be worth spending a transfer on. If you look at the fixtures around 26, like it's Chelsea at home in 25, not great. It's Palace away afterwards. They've also got Liverpool at home in 29. They wouldn't play in game week 31. I can't see the sense in most cases to bring a Wolves player in just to take them back out again later. Maybe if you get to 26 and you need to make a midfield downgrade and you want to put someone in from Wolves for 1 week only, that might work. But the idea of like buying a defender or a midfielder doesn't really make too much sense. I mentioned on my wildcard video that maybe you could go for Jose Sarr on the bench instead of Dubravka. The only thing to consider there is he has been linked with a move away to Nottingham Forest. So if that goes through, you suddenly lose your double game week goalkeeper and you're probably just better off with Dubravka instead. So if Arsenal win, it's not really going to make too much difference. If Chelsea win, that really throws a spanner in the works because I'm sat there with Guiu and Enzo Fernandez. All of a sudden, Chalobah will be a consideration. If João Pedro's minutes look good, I might want him. If Cole Palmer can get to full fitness, they'd all suddenly be options and it'd be a lot more difficult to get to. Same with Everton. I've just brought in Elliot Anderson. Maybe I should have gone for Dewsbury Hall. If you've got Tarkowski, he might be worth keeping hold of. I think the overall... So if you're not on wildcard and you can roll this week, that's probably quite nice. If you're on the fence about making a move or not, I would just wait. Because next week, if Chelsea suddenly have a double and not Arsenal, people are going to have a lot more transfers to make. So that would be my general strategy or my general takeaway from this. It doesn't mean you shouldn't make transfers. If you've already bought in Burma or Fernandez, that's probably absolutely fine. So don't panic. But if you're on the fence, I would save a transfer until next week. If you're on wildcard, I think this makes it... I think basically you've got to hedge your bets a little bit. You've got to have 3 Arsenal and you've probably got to have 2 or 3 Chelsea. Because then you know for sure you've got at least 2 players that are going to double in 26. Would I load up on Everton? Not necessarily. But I guess if I was looking for a cheap midfielder, like people might be looking at Douglas Luiz, Enzo Lefebvre, etc., I probably would just go for Dewsbury Hall on the off chance that if Everton double in 26, he's then got Bournemouth at home and Chelsea at home, and he's not a bad pick either. So that's the announcement. There will be a double in 26. It will be Arsenal and Wolves or Chelsea and Everton, not both. And Newcastle and Man City cannot double because of basically top 8 in Europe. I hope that makes sense. This is just like an initial reaction based off the announcement. I feel like maybe I'm missing something that I should be talking through, but I think that's about it. Get Chelsea and Arsenal on wildcard. If you can save a transfer this week, I would. And probably don't sell any players from these 4 teams if you've got them. Like if you've got Tarkowski and you were thinking about moving him to Chalobah, I guess that's not terrible. But if Tarkowski doubles, like Bournemouth at home, Chelsea at home is not that bad for a player who's really good for defensive contributions. Just keep in mind, by the way, if they do double because they've won in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, they will blank in 31. So all of a sudden, you would have an extra fixture for Everton and Chelsea in 26, but you'd lose it in game week 31. So it might not even be a case that you want to go all in. While I'm thinking about it, I don't think this really changes chip strategy all that much. It doesn't make wildcard 24 better. In fact, if anything, this makes wildcard 24 worse. Because if Chelsea were able to overturn that deficit, all of a sudden you're going to want Chelsea and Everton players more than Arsenal and Wolves. You'd probably still want 3 Arsenal, don't get me wrong. But if you were wildcarding in 25 instead of 24 and Chelsea beat Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, your wildcard team would look a bit different. So if anything, it makes 24 a little bit weaker. I think unless your team's in an absolute mess, you shouldn't be wildcarding anyway, in my opinion. Let's wait and see what happens in 25. I think for most people, basically, if you want a simple life, you want Arsenal to win. If you want some chaos, you want Chelsea to win. But like I said, Arsenal will be the favourites. I don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be. Basically, this is just a provisional announcement. Arsenal, Wolves, Chelsea, Everton. If I've missed something major that I should have covered, or you've got any questions that haven't been answered in this video, leave them below and I'll include them on Final Thoughts tomorrow. I just wanted to get an initial reaction out there based on this announcement, because it's the first double game week of the season. If you enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you tomorrow for Final Thoughts.